far as the Poonch terror attack is concerned. Where top intel sources are telling us here at CNN News 18 that there are 5 attackers who have been suspected to have a role as far as this terror attack is concerned. 3 of them are suspected to be foreign terrorists and 2 local. Sources also telling us that the attack was well planned with the motive to create sensation ahead of the G20 summit, which is going to happen next month. Some shopkeepers in the area are also being questioned if they saw any suspicious movement before the actual firing happened. That's the update that's coming in, where we're understanding there are 5 attackers that have been suspected, roles of local also being looked into. Our colleague Arunima now joining us with more details. And Arunima, these are exactly the questions that we've been raising since yesterday, that were there locals involved? How did you have an ammunition or IED, if that was the case, attached to an army vehicle? Was this an area that was wrecked? What are the kind of clarity that is now emerging?
It's still work in progress, but this is based on the investigation that is being done at the spot itself. There are some shops around that area where the incident happened. So those shopkeepers, when the firing was going on, they heard certain things. They heard the gunfire. They may not have seen much, and that is why the questioning is going on to ascertain whether just before the truck came in for the attack by the terrorists there, when the firing began and when the grenade was lobbed, was there any suspicious movement that these shopkeepers saw? Now the problem also is that it was raining very heavily and the weather condition was bad, and this is at a height, so the temperature must have dipped as well. So there is a possibility that everybody took shelter inside and didn't really keep an eye on what was going on outside. That's also a possibility, but nevertheless everybody who was possibly there at that spot is being spoken to by the local police. There are certain suspicion based on these conversations and based on, I think, what the locals have told them. They've come to this conclusion that at least 5 terrorists were involved. Yesterday also they were quoting the figure of 3 to 5, but now they have ascertained that at least 5 were definitely present. Firing came from all 3 sides, and 2 of those that group, 2 looked like natives of that particular area, which is leading to perhaps the conclusion that at least 3 were foreign terrorists and the other 2 were providing more of logistical support. The police had some leads. They're saying combing operation is going on, but heavily forested area is a problem for the forces there.
Arunima, I'll just request you to stay on with us. We're getting some visuals also now coming in. You have the police and the NIA team which is on the ground to try and ascertain what really happened. Arunima, what I essentially also want to understand, because details are still sketchy, is there a possibility that these terrorists were trying to attack a convoy of more vehicles? Were they looking at more people being injured, but because it was a dry day, there was movement of just one army vehicle? Are all those also aspects that are being looked into?
Absolutely. This was a pre-planned attack is what they have ascertained. They're absolutely convinced that this was not like suddenly you see a truck coming in and you have the arms and the ammunition, so you throw a grenade. It is not that kind of an attack. They had laid an ambush. They were expecting a movement of vehicles. Perhaps they were expecting a full convoy, and as luck would have it, there was only one vehicle which moved on that area. That's a matter of investigation, but preliminary information that investigators have makes them believe that this was a well-planned, well-orchestrated attack. They had brought in supplies, they had identified hideouts inside that forested area, and the motive they suspect is to do something quote-unquote spectacular ahead of the G20 meeting in Srinagar. The question can be asked that if the meeting venue in Srinagar, why were you targeting Rajouri Poonch? So we have seen over the last few months, almost a year, how the trajectory of these terror attacks have shifted. The spectacular attack trajectory has shifted from the valley to the Jammu division. Because there is such heavy footfall of security forces in the valley. It's chock-a-block with the army, with CRPF, ITBP, other paramilitary forces and Jammu and Kashmir police. Comparatively, there's less concentration of boots in the Jammu division. Perhaps that's the reason why focus has been shifted towards the other side of Pir Panjal as well.
But Arunima, what is also now becoming more and more clear as more details emerge, that locals would have had to have some sort of a role, either in giving shelter to these terrorists, helping them either recce this area, or possibly somebody from inside the system who helped placing this IED or a sticky bomb or whatever that was. On those lines, any details that have emerged? Are people in the local area also now being picked up and questioned?
Well, like I said, there are some shops in the vicinity, and those shopkeepers perhaps were the first respondent when the truck caught fire. And when the firing began, they also could have been the first people, the only people, the third party, so to say, not the attacker, not the victim, but the third party who heard what happened. So they are being spoken to try and ascertain what really was the sequence of events. event that happened. Who were the overground workers who helped them? There is no village, so to say. There's no abadi in the immediate vicinity. There are some shops a little on the upswing, and there are some local bastis on the downside of that particular stretch. So did they come and take their supplies from these shops and from these bastis? That is also being ascertained by the police. The people who have been detained, most are suspected to have provided some kind of help. Overground workers is what the police is calling them. But we don't really know at this stage how many of them played a role. If any one of them played an active role, but they are definitely suspicious of these people, and that's why they are being questioned at this stage.
Arima, what I also essentially want to understand, the visuals that we're now getting in, you have the Jammu and Kashmir DGP Dilbagh Singh on the ground, you have teams of the NIA also on the ground. But as far as this OGW nexus or overground workers is concerned, this has been a larger problem as far as the valley and surrounding areas are concerned. What is the thinking as far as sources on the ground is concerned to be able to get a hold of this nexus?
Tough to say that, the topography of that particular area where the line of control is close by, it's proximate, and in the last 2 attacks that have happened in this area, the suspicion has been that you've infiltrated and you've carried out this attack and disappeared in the heavily forested area. Unlike the valley where people usually take shelters in the apple orchards, it's not like it's a valley, it's not like a hilly terrain, and it has people, it has population. So the modus operandi of foreign terrorists there have been to go take shelter in these villages, either force the villagers at gunpoint to give them supplies, to give them logistics, to give them accommodation, or in some cases they had genuine sentiments against the security forces, so they helped these terrorists. But here it is slightly different, because like I have been explaining, there is not much population in that area. So then how were they getting their supplies? Who was helping them in understanding the topography? The suspicion is that 3 of them were foreign terrorists. So if these are foreign terrorists, the topography is as alien to them as for anybody who's going from mainland India. So who was really helping them to understand the forested area, to pinpoint where the natural caves was? It is that line that the police is investigating on. Who really provided them with logistical support and giving them idea about that general terrain, and why was this support given? That's why the current round of questioning is happening.
I also want to understand, Arunima, a short while ago we got this piece of information that certain suspects have already been detained. So do we understand the identity of these suspects, how many suspects, and what is going to be the line of questioning with these suspects?
I think the police is not wanting to come out with full details at this stage, because if there are others who are involved, they could get alerted. So all that they are confirming at this stage is that they have some leads, and from what I understand is that these leads are more about overground workers who perhaps provided support by way of either help them transport the goods that they were taking, because what officials are telling us is that this group of terrorists had come well stocked with supplies. Whatever their hideout was, they had enough food items, they had basic medicines also with them, arms and ammunition. So because it's a hilly terrain, it might have been difficult to transport all of it. So did somebody help them with transportation? Did somebody help them identify which natural cave was closest to the spot, where the hideout should be? Who were the people? If there are 2 local terrorists, what was the role that they played, and who are these locals? Many of them cross over from the Shopia as well. If you see the topography, many of the terrorists have often crossed over from Shopia as well. So was that route taken? Is the origin of the local terrorists on the Kashmir Valley side, or are they from the Jammu division side, from the Poonch Rajouri side? These are questions that investigators are grappling with, but the current round of questioning and the leads that they have is something that they are hoping will help them crack this case.
Arunima, we leave the conversation there. Thanks a lot for getting us all those details. We'll keep tracking all those developments. For now, we're slipping into a very short break.